We're back on the Exit 52 podcast. My name is Jake Louque. I'm joined by Arditti. We are presented by Jimmy's Famous Seafood. Eric, we're checking in at long last. It's been, we were talking before we got going here. It's been a couple months since we sat down and talked some Baltimore Orioles. I think it's good that we wait a little while to dive back into it. I don't think either of us were too interested in it while the corpse was still warm of the 2024 season, which of course did not have the most fun or thrilling end to it. But yeah, here we are. The winter meetings have kicked off. We've got Mike Elias addressing the media. We've got the Orioles making a couple moves. But before we get going, how are you doing, my friend?
We're good. We're good. Again, yeah, it's been a little bit, but there wasn't much to talk about in the cold, dark days after the Orioles got their, they got worked by the Royals, and then we were just rooting our little hearts out for the anybody not the Yankees. So it's been a good couple days for the Yankee haters. So I will say that's been very fun to keep up with.
No, that has been a lot of fun. We, of course, got Juan Soto signing with the Mets, 15 years, $765 million deal. It's kind of got me wondering a little bit. I mean, does David Rubenstein see that and say, the hotshot billionaire owner that buys kind of the underdog team, is there a little bit of a, blank measuring contest here? Do I have to start to put my my proverbial nuts on the table and go make a big move of my own? I'd love to see that. I think not expecting it. It's pretty facetious. I think Steve Cohen has always been pretty gung-ho in his ownership of the Mets. I don't think Rubenstein necessarily is going to operate all the way like that, but it would be nice. And of course, before we fully get going here, we also wanted to shout out our sponsor, Jimmy's Seafood, who I mentioned. Next week, they're bringing the Tailgoat on the road. If you're listening to this, you probably know what the Tailgoat is by now, but if you are not, it's one of the great parties that is on offer in the Baltimore area, or when they take it on the road, wherever the Ravens are playing. This week, it is going to be up in Jersey for the Giants game. They're taking it up to the big parking lot there that is MetLife Stadium. They're going to be having a grand old time there. You can get yourself some tickets at tailgoat.com/product. Grab yourself some tickets for the Tailgoat, make the drive up to New York or hop on a train or whatever. It's a quick drive up. You can make it a day trip. You could stay for a night. You could hit Broadway. You can do whatever you want. Hit up the Tailgoat, hit up that Giants game, have yourself some fun, and help our sponsor out. We would appreciate that very much. But with that out of the way, we will jump officially into it here. So free agency has officially kicked off for the O's. In fact, it did the other night. Some moves had already been made, some big ones. I think you and I certainly were high on the idea of bringing in a Blake Snell, who, of course, that turned out to be a pipe dream because just like all these other big names, winds up going to the Dodgers. Obviously, he had been targeted by the Orioles in this past trade deadline, but it wound up not happening. So, yeah, him going to the Dodgers. What are some of the other big moves that have been made? If you want to fill me in here, kind of lay it all out for the listeners.
We got Soto. You had Willy Adames go to the Giants. And, again, all of these are quote unquote, you can't comment. They asked Brandon Hyde today on MLB Network about Tyler O'Neill.
That was this morning, right?
No, that was, I want to say Saturday, maybe Sunday. It was maybe Friday. Yeah. I mean, they got him a couple days ago, but again, none of these guys are officially inked. So they asked Hyde, you brought in Tyler O'Neill, and he's like, well, I don't know what you're talking about. We haven't signed anybody yet. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We would love to get a guy like Tyler O'Neill, but you can't comment on it. They asked, what's the dude Mendoza from the Mets? He said his favorite acquisition so far has been Jose Siri from the Rays. He's like, we haven't signed anybody else. So, I'm trying to think. It was Adames. I mean, some of the other big guys are still out there. Obviously, the Santander, Teoscar, that kind of right field, outfield kind of those guys are out there. But yeah, I mean, it was Snell, Soto, obviously Burns is still out there.
Roki Sasaki still out there.
Yes,
Max Fried hanging out there.
Fried as well. So yeah, there's again, I mean, there's still a lot of good players out there, and obviously now that Soto is done and out of the way, you would think that things are going to kind of get moving, and obviously the winter meeting's taking place, so that's the time that everything gets going.
Yep, absolutely. And so we kind of hit on it that the Orioles have, quote unquote, made a few moves. They're not able to comment on them because they haven't been made official yet. I don't know if it's necessarily league paperwork or just the fact that the teams haven't made them official.
Mm-hmm. I think it's that the signings just haven't officially happened. I know I think they're still pending physicals and all that, but
Shout out to who's that Australian dude?
Grant Balfour.
Yeah, Balfour. Yeah. Yeah. So we as an Orioles fan, you never really know. But yeah, the first move they make, their first strike is for an outfielder. It is Tyler O'Neill, 31-year-old, generally plays in the left field, was on the Sox last season. I think we all saw him hit a mammoth shot against the Orioles up at Fenway Park, I believe that was.
Mm-hmm.
Hits for power, 31 home runs last season, OPS of plus 800. I forget the exact number, but seems like a solid player. I think a lot of people throwing it out there that is probably going to be your Santander, if not replacement, then kind of platooning him with Heston Kjerstad there. Your thoughts on the Tyler O'Neill move?
Yeah, it was, again, I didn't think that he would be a guy who they would go after. That was before the wall was moved in. Obviously, the wall coming in is a big thing. That's going to help guys like Ryan Mountcastle and Kobe Mayo and Tyler O'Neill. All those guys are big, strong guys, and they don't necessarily need the help. But obviously, anytime you can move a fence in, I think you kind of say, hey, we put it back a little too far. But again, they're fixing it, and O'Neill is a guy who he's going to hit for power. And he's going to hit for power against lefties. He's going to get on base against lefties as well. I got his splits pulled up here. Again, in 156 plate appearances against lefties, 16 home runs. The RBI numbers are wild with him because he had 31 home runs, and I think it was like 69 RBIs or something. Like it doesn't really add 61 RBIs. It doesn't add up. You would think that if you're hitting 30 home runs, you're gonna drive in a couple more guys. But again, I mean, 16 home runs off lefties, 29 RBIs. It's a funny split to me. But again, the 313 batting average against lefties. The Orioles outfielder, shout out our guy, Pigtown, Zach Moore. He had a tweet the other day about it, but the Orioles outfielders against lefties were bad. It was obviously Cowser lefty, Mullins lefty, and then Santander switch hitter.
And they love, I mean, obviously it grew to be infamous. They love kind of going to the splits and going, who hits lefties well in the situation, bring them on pretty much no matter like what the feel of the situation says. They love to defer to the numbers there. So it's good to have that option.
Yeah, and again, now you have a guy who that's the book on him. He will kill lefties. 313 batting average, 430 on base percentage, 750 slugging. That's good for a 1180 OPS. Again, I will take that any day. Boris. I think he's a Boris. He is a Boris guy, I believe. And they asked Boris about him, and he said they asked him so is he going to be a platoon guy? Is he going to be a starter? And he said we're going into this thinking that he's going to play every day. That may just be Boris being Boris and kind of talking out of his ass. But Jared here, I talked to an unnamed baseball reporter, and he said something like he'll make some kind of boneheaded plays in the field. He has a strong arm. He's won 2 Gold Gloves. That's another thing. People will be like, "Oh, he's a good fielder. He's won 2 Gold Gloves." That's not how this award works. Again, Juan Soto was a finalist for a Gold Glove. We know that this does not mean you're a great fielder. But he's a strong arm, and Jared said he does the throw and like cartwheel over himself every time he throws home, and he goes he'll never throw anybody out, but he like really goes into it. But yeah, he said he's a great clubhouse guy. His teammates always love him. The media loves him. And he just mashes. And I said the Orioles kind of needed one of those big, strong. I mean, if you see him, he has pipes. He's your girlfriend or wife or mom's new favorite Oriole. He is jacked. He is ripped. His dad was like some big bodybuilder in Canada too. So we needed one of these kind of.
You're kind of getting into some Michael Scott talking about Stanley's daughter vibes. It's hot, it's sexy, and it turns him on. And the best part of my day is staring at it.
The guy, he's easy to look at. I said, he's a good, he would do well in the underwear Olympics, but he's jacked, he's ripped. But we needed one of these big burly guys who's just going to hit the hell out of the ball. And that's what he is. The downside, people don't like it. The strikeouts, he's going to strike out a lot. He is kind of, it's not the three, the 3 outcomes or whatever. He's not your typical one. He is a home run, strikeout, walk. I think they said 51% of his at-bats ended in a strikeout, home run, or walk. So, you're kind of, you know what you're going to get with him. Again, 18 doubles last year, 31 home runs, playing with the monster and left.
I don't remember like Trumbo's walk numbers or like the advanced analytics there, but it gives me some Trumbo vibes. A move like this, just kind of under the radar, but like he might come in and hit 30 home runs for you, and that's great.
Yeah, and again, if he strikes out 150 times, sure, okay. That's kind of the name of the game in baseball now. I mean, again, we're in Baltimore, we're used to big strikeout numbers, but another thing is his injuries. He's been injured a lot. When he plays and healthy, he will hit home runs and he will play well. I think he played 113 games last year. I believe he had like a 2.6 WAR. And I love the guy, Anthony Santander. His WAR last year, I think, was like 2.9, and he played in basically every game. So he, if you want to call him the replacement, because I don't, he's not coming back at this point. If he does, it would be a miracle, and I don't know what the money would be. But I think he's going to hit home runs. He's going to strike out a lot, and he's going to probably platoon in right field with Kjerstad. Again, play the splits there, and he can be a DH if you need. So I'm the contract. People are like, oh, $50 million for a platoon bat. It could be a 1-year deal. He has an opt out after 1 year. So if he comes in and hits 35 home runs, he can go and get another big deal next year. And the Orioles are kind of back in. Maybe Fabian or one of those guys is ready for an outfield spot then, but it's not a 50 mil for a platoon guy for a guy who's going to play, I don't know, 120 games. I'm hoping that he's in the lineup a lot, and I think he will be. But I'm excited. I mean, the power plays, and he had 241 overall last year. I think hopefully the hitting coach and the guys behind the scenes can do what they did with Ryan O'Hearn and take his strikeout numbers, and you look where they were last year. I think he was great last year when it came to not striking out. So maybe they can tinker a little bit if they can get their strikeout numbers down a little bit. If they can get him to hit some more gappers, and but he's a straight up pull hitter. Everything. I think they said 5 of his home runs last year went to right or right center, in center. So he's going to hit balls to left field, and with that wall coming in, I think that helps. If he didn't like the idea of it, he would not have signed. So good for him, for coming here. I'm very anxious to see what he can do, and I'm excited to see that kind of power put on display. I think he's a perfect, 4 or 5. We talked about it. Like, they need a middle of the order bat. They got one. Guy hit 31 home runs last year in 113 games. So spread that out over 140, 150 games. You're up with those 44, 45, 46 home run numbers like Santander hit. So I'm excited. People should be excited for him. There's a lot of people already down on him. First name, last name, 420 for life. If you don't like it, kind of, it's whatever. But this is a guy that is going to hit bombs for the Orioles this year.
Yeah, there's just, I think, a lot of anxiety in the fan base, and I think some of that is understandable, where it's like you see this type of move happen first. We see this happen with the Ravens a lot. Obviously, you can't relate as much to that, but like when that sort of first move is made, and it's not sort of that big ticket hot name, it's not re-signing Corbin Burns, right? It's not even like extending Adley, which I've seen some rumblings about that going on recently. I'm not even sure where the sourcing on that is from, but
it was a medium.com post from a guy who spelled Adley's name wrong every time he typed it. And he's like a Big East reporter. I got sent that a couple of times, and I'm like, medium.com, which is just like anybody and their mother can create one.
Yeah, it's a blog.
Yeah. And again, he's like, here's my reportings from the winter meetings. Anybody can go to the winter meetings. Anybody can. And if you're going to misspell Rutschman twice, I'm not going to take you seriously at all. As someone who does not get taken seriously, I'm not going to take that seriously.
I think it's pronounced Richard. It's pronounced Richardson.
Yes, Adley Richardson. They're playing well, man. Those twins are playing well. But
good for them. Yeah, their
boyfriends aren't, but
yeah, too bad for Carson Beck, man. That
he may be the ugliest person in sports.
He's not. Yeah, no. I mean, good thing he can, sling a football around, because
not anymore. Not with that.
Yeah. Shit, man. I guess that's true. Well, the way they were playing with that backup, they could just turn it into a wishbone offense.
Gunner with the ER.
Gunner Stockton. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, that's your first move. And like I said, when it's not the big, re-sign the big name or sign another big name, I totally get why there's a little bit of anxiety about, like, what, I saw somebody said something to the effect of, like, it's a good move, but it can't just be the move. I totally agree with that. Like,
yes. And again, I don't think it will. It may be the only move really for offense beside, obviously they bring in Gary Sanchez too, but like, I don't know if they have more room to bring in like another legitimate bat. And again, if he's the only move on offense, then I'm kind of okay with that. just because there's no real spots. Like the last couple of years, we've been like, oh, there's a competition at second base. There's a competition for this outfield, for this. All the outfield, all the spots are kind of taken. That's not in the bullpen and not in the rotation, obviously. But when it comes to the lineup, I mean, Kowser's going to play every day. Mullins is going to play every day. Right field was kind of that question mark with Heston and maybe Santander. Maybe, now it's going to be Tyler O'Neill. But the infield shirt up. You're going to have the Ryan brothers at first. You're going to have Jackson at second. You're going to have what's that guy's name? Gunnar at short. And then you're going to have Westberg at third with Jorge Mateo to play, second base sometimes, I'm sure. And then your catchers are now going to be Gary and Adley. There's your offense right there.
Yeah.
I guess if you want to maybe carry another like outfielder, maybe Jorge is going to be your outfield replacement for defense. They don't have that Ryan McKenna, Austin Slater, who got
picked up. They said they were going to sit down with Jorge and kind of discuss his role. I'm not even sure he's going to be healthy and ready to go.
That's another thing. So maybe they do make a move like that for, a Ryan McKenna type player, just a guy who to come in for defense in right field when you need it, like when they would take Tony out. But again, I'm sure people will be like, oh, here we go. There's another bad signing there. How can you sign this guy? But there's no spots for the taking with this lineup. It's kind of full with, and I like everybody in it, and I like where it's at. So it may be the move on offense, but it's not going to be the move. Like, this is not going to be the pitching staff in the bullpen that they go into spring training with. I will guarantee that that's not going to happen. So
yeah. So you mentioned it, their second signing there. Hashtag I am Gary Sanchez. Of course, Orioles fans should know him pretty well from his days with the Yankees. He last played there in 2021, I believe, two-time All-Star, 2017 and 2019. Can't lie, I haven't tracked his career much since he left. It feels like there was a bit of a fall off there. Last played with the Brewers this past season, hit 11 home runs. All I kind of really remember about Gary when he was with the Yankees, good hitter, not a good defensive catcher at all. So it's an interesting James McCann replacement with him walking out the door. I wouldn't read too much into this one. They needed a backup catcher. This is a guy they were probably pretty familiar with. Bring him in, slot him in there beside Adley. I'll be interested to see how his defense plays a factor. I would assume McCann, a better defensive catcher at this point. So you kind of tell me on this one.
So the baseball savant, if you compared them, McCann and Gary Sanchez, Sanchez was better defensively in pretty much every defensive metric versus McCann. And again, I loved McCann. I liked when, what he brought here. He obviously was a bulldog. We saw the nose, the face, everything. He was a leader in the clubhouse and a veteran and somebody that, Adley could go to and a lot of the other guys could go to. He was just a straight up leader. And yeah, it sounded like I read a couple places that he was looking for a multi-year deal. And with Basallo, kind of knocking on the door, and we'll probably at this time next year, we'll probably be okay. Does he break camp with the Orioles? I don't think that they were going to go a multi-year deal with him and with, probably the money that he wanted. And it also helped. I mean, the Mets were paying a lot of his salary the last couple of years. So the Orioles weren't on the hook for a lot of that. So you could run him out there last year. But this year, again, if he was looking for a multi-year deal, it's probably not going to be here in Baltimore. And he probably knew that. Obviously, he knows the team, the fan base, or the farm system, all that. And yeah, Gary he's looking for a 1 year, $8.5 million deal. Perfectly fine. Like I said on Twitter on Saturday night, I can't get mad or upset about an $8.5 million deal for a backup catcher. I don't have the energy to do that. I think you're wasting your breath. If that's if you're pounding the table, how could they do this? It's a 1 year deal. Doesn't mean anything. And again, I mean, this is a guy we've seen. He had a home run last year against the Orioles in Camden Yards. He smoked that ball off Tyler Wells. So he still has the power. Him and McCann it was a weird, if you compare them on Baseball Reference, their offensive numbers were whatever. But again, he's a backup catcher. Played 89 games for them last year. Again, 37 driven in, hits 220. His on base percentage is 307. That's higher than McCann's. Slugs 392, 699 OPS. That's perfectly fine with me. You could have done a little. I don't know who else out there. Maybe Danny Jansen, who signed with the Rays, I believe. But I'm perfectly okay with the signing. Again, I think I'm going to buy the Adley stock this year. I think he really rebounds. I think last year, if he was hurt, if he was out of shape, if he was whatever. I think that's all going to get cleared up and kind of put in the past. And there were people who were like, well, you need a good backup catcher because he's going to play a lot. That may not happen now. Hopefully Adley can, if he is in better shape or if he is healthy, will play a majority of the games. And again, you put McCann in as a DH versus lefties because you didn't really have that guy last year. Now you can have an outfielder in right and Tyler O'Neill, as a DH or something like that. So Gary's not going to play as much as I think we've seen the backup catchers play in the last couple of years. But again, it's a move that I'm perfectly fine with. It's a veteran guy who's been in the playoffs. He has gone deep in the playoffs, and we clowned on him when he was a Yankee, but the guy's been a winner and he's been on some good teams and he went to the playoffs with Milwaukee and they could have done a lot worse. So I'm perfectly okay with the move. Again, I'm not going to piss and moan about a backup catcher. I'm fine with that move.
Yeah, I'd be interested if it's almost like we do see a little bit more of him early in the season so that Adley isn't worn out by the time we get to August. I felt like with all the speculation on his health, which we still don't have any real details on that. I mean, there's a case to be made that he was probably just fucking tired. He was playing a lot. And the idea that maybe you could start out with platooning him, not fully platooning him, but just in a sense where Sanchez is going to get a little bit of run earlier in the year and then have Adley kind of take over in that full role for health opportunities is fine. And then on the leadership perspective, your backup catcher being a clubhouse guy, one of those leaders is great and all, but he's your backup catcher. And I think Slugs Reds in the comments here makes the point that they brought in Robinson Chirinos in a coaching role. I mean, that should kind of take care of that room at the very least. So I think you're fine there. I think it's, probably time for Adley to just sort of take that role anyway. Like we said all of last season, when people were kind of getting down on him, and I think we, criticized him a little bit as well. Never getting personal with it or anything, but just that he needed to step it up. It's time for him to really step into that role as kind of the face of the franchise. I think he's the beating heart of this ball club. And I think you're right. I'm buying in on the Adley stock. I think he's going to have a nice bounce back season. And I think he's going to have to step into the spotlight here. And this is a move that's going to hopefully help him be able to do that.
And there's a great point about the Chirinos thing too, that it's a fantastic, move by Hyde to bring him in. And again, he really, it seemed like he was the key that kind of made that clubhouse go. And we all shit on him and we crapped on him because he was a bad baseball player and he was this and that. But again, he obviously had an effect on that team when he came back last year, before a game, I think when they played Texas, and you would have thought the president was in town. They were mobbing him. They love that guy. So yeah, that's spot on. And today Hyde was on MLB Network and they asked him, and somebody said, with Santander likely gone, Corbin Burns may be out too, where are you going to get that veteran leadership from? And Hyde said that exact same thing. He said, Adley Rutschman, he's not a young face anymore. He's been here a long time now. This is, he's going into, what is this? This is going to be his fourth year. So he said same thing with Gunnar, and he said Westberg too. He said Westberg is a guy who I think will take that step as a leader, but he goes, all these guys can and will. And he goes, they are looked at upon like veterans, and they've been there and they've had bad years, but they've also gone to the playoffs. They know what it's like to see kind of both sides of this now. So I'm with you. I think Adley will step up, and I think this is the kind of the year that he kind of the Cam Newton gift, the nod your head, okay, this is now it's kind of go time. This is my team. And again, I think Chirinos is going to help with that. I think Chirinos is kind of going to get that into his head. Hey, this is your town, buddy. I've driven that into the ground, but this is seriously your town. And, this is your clubhouse now. And this is your locker room. This is your field. This is your team. So yeah, I would love to see them kind of take that next step. I think all those guys are kind of leaders too. Westberg, I could see, again, if you watch the, what did they call it last year? What was the Orioles documentary thing they did? Where Westberg had some quotes and he just said, I love these guys like my brother. These are my best friends, but he goes, I'm going to beat all of them. I want to be the best. I want to start. I want to get every at bat. So he has that mindset of I'm a leader. So I'm excited for that, to see how they kind of take that and run with it for this season.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be nice to see all these younger guys kind of how they adjust to the leadership role, because they're all growing up together in the same way that an NFL team kind of does sometimes with their sort of young cores. It feels like you don't see this as often in baseball with the way that the draft works and how timing just doesn't necessarily facilitate this to happen. But yeah, you're right. I mean, looking at this starting lineup, you might have Holiday in there, day one. You'll certainly have Westberg. You'll certainly have Rutschman. You'll certainly have Henderson. Kerstad figures to be in the mix day one. So it's a lot of young faces. They're going to have to really put some of this kind of leadership, questioning and gray area behind them. And you're going to have guys settle into that role. So, I mean, that's sort of a long-winded way of discussing the Gary Sanchez signing. But yeah, hopefully Adley's healthy and he can sort of step up into that role alongside Gunnar, certainly. And obviously, I think Grayson could be another guy as well in that discussion. But yeah, as far as those two moves being made, they were the quote-unquote opening salvo. Like we talked about, the winter meetings have officially kicked off. Mike Elias just met with the media within the past hour. Had some interesting comments. He like you mentioned, he couldn't hit on the two reported signings thus far. But basically, like looking through Jacob Calvin-Meyer and some of these people's who's covering it live, their Twitter, it seems like a lot of the questions were geared toward pitchers and pitchers to bring in via free agency. And Elias pretty much left everything on the table. He said that they are, quote, in on everybody. Could they acquire 2 starting pitchers in the offseason? He said, I think it's possible. There are scenarios where I could see that happening, but no guarantees. He said they're not shying away from signing a starting pitcher who would cost the Orioles a draft pick. He said they're not shying away from pitchers who have qualifying orders or qualifying offers extended to them. It seems like they're attacking this aggressively, and obviously, or I guess not obviously, but we were talking before we got going here. Jacob, I think, tweeted as the press conference was ending that he was getting a call on his phone and somebody asked if it was Rubenstein. He said it's something even better than that and scurried away to take the call. So it sounds like he's really working the phones there. They're trying to add some pitchers here. He said he likes where the rotation is at, but they're not shying away from pretty much any possibility.
Yeah. Again, I mean, pitching seems to kind of be the story right now. And, is it going to be Burns? And I know our buddy Ryan Blake had tweeted out Rock's article where Eve Rosenbaum had a quote and it said something about since Corbin has left us, and people were like, oh my God, he's gone. That means he's 100% gone. He may be, but I don't think that's what she was saying. I think she was just doing that GM Elias, John Harbaugh kind of any manager, any front office person word salad. He
is a free agent.
He's not on the team. He's not left them right now. Yes, that is true. Yeah. And again, but there were people who were like, oh my, holy shit, she just admitted it. What are we going to do? And it's like, no.
Oh my God, he admitted.
Yeah, he admitted. Oh my God, he had to kiss his mother-in-law. But that's not how it is. It very may well be. Sure. But again, I still think they're going to be in on guy like Eovaldi. I can't get that thought out of my head. I would love that move. We talked about him before. Everywhere he goes, they're in the playoffs, and somehow they end up in the World Series. I'm not saying that's simply because of him, but he is on good teams every single year.
I am going to say it. I think it is because of Nathan Eovaldi that teams are going to the World Series. So I think they should make that move immediately.
Oh, okay. Well, there we go. I don't know why it hasn't been made already though. But yeah, again, I'm scrolling through Calvin's Jacob Calvin. No, he tweeted his press pass from Dallas today, and it just said Jacob Meyer, and I didn't like that. I wanted to tweet him no Calvin, like Michael Scott, like what happened to Calvin? Is Calvin?
I think Calvin is his middle name.
I know, but
because there's no dash, so he's not like a hyphenated guy. He's not
he's hyphenated.
Josh Hines Allen, that kind of thing.
He's hyphenated to me, but yeah. Again, he's the Orioles are involved in the starting market. They're heavily engaged. It's kind of all the same thing. Competitive bull market, moving fast, keeping us on our toes. Elias is just going through. It's him and it's Harbaugh with the Harbaugh Deontay Johnson press conference. They're like, I wish I could say more, or that's all I can say right now. These guys get off on just getting paid by the word. That's what they think. Yeah, here's Elias. I like where the rotation is starting from this year, but we're trying to augment it, supplement it, fortify it. We should put that on a shirt. Augment it, supplement it.
That was just the most Princeton guy of all time. I mean, what are we doing with some of this?
It's so good. But here, somebody said, I'm guessing he didn't specify to imply free agency or trade. There aren't too many teams making major league players available for prospects right now. Those that are, we're deeply engaged with those teams. Those that aren't in that mode, we're exploring major league for major league type of trades, which takes unique fits on the roster. So again, take that as what you will. If they're looking to trade a major leaguer for a major leaguer, you guys can probably read in between the lines on who that is. And I don't know, but yeah, again, it's day one of day two, I guess, if you want to say the winter meetings, things will get done. And all I can say is keep your notifications on. That's what I do and just refresh your little heart out. But again, I would expect the Orioles to at least get a pitcher and a bullpen guy. I would like 2 or 3 bullpen arms. We saw last year you cannot have enough bullpen depth. So, and he even said, I think he mentioned today that they're still in contact with Jacob Webb and Danny Coulombe. Like that, those guys could be back. So
yeah, we forgot to bring those names up. I mean, the kind of significant moves there to not officially bring them back. Coulombe obviously was the real shocking one that happened a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I think that would be a smart move to keep those guys on the line.
Yeah, and he had said that, Elias had said that about both guys when it happened. Like we're not closing the door on them. Again, this could have been like one of the NFL things where it's like we didn't like them at this number, we're going to release you and go kind of see if you can get something else and come back to us. And if there's a number that we feel comfortable with, then yeah, let's run it. So I don't know. Those guys definitely could be back. I would love Jordan Romano, who we saw a bunch with the Blue Jays. He signed with the Phillies today or yesterday. That was a name that some people had wanted, but Tanner Scott's still out there. Some of those sexy reliever names, I don't know if they'll go Tanner Scott, but I definitely expect him to get a bullpen arm or 2. That seems like the weak part of the team right now, because again, we have no clue what Felix Bautista is going to be. Who knows about Yennier Cano and all those guys. So they have to add pieces, and I think they will.
Yeah, I think it's the starting rotation. I mean, it's in an interesting spot there with Grayson. Obviously, we know what he can be. Can he stay healthy is the big question. I think Zach Eflin, if I really had to guess, I feel like Zach Eflin's getting the ball on day one. That would be my prediction for your day one starter as of right now. I mean, I've been pounding the drum for months that I want Burns back. It does kind of feel like maybe that ship has sailed. He's going to go to one of these teams that's going to throw a bag of money at him. And, you've got, Big Bert and some of these other guys still in the mix that I think some of them punched above their weight. Some of them could be solid. You've got Povich still in the mix. So, yeah, maybe one. Yeah, Kramer, certainly. Yeah, obviously, Dean. So, yeah, I mean, some good names there. Wouldn't be shocked to see them add a guy who could figure as a 4th or a 5th. I saw somebody commenting in here about Justin Verlander. I mean, that would be intriguing. I mean, that was kind of thrown out there with the trade deadline last season. If it's not expensive, which he's a big name brand, so maybe it still would be, but wouldn't necessarily hate it. So yeah, I don't know, it's just they're in an interesting spot. I think you're right that loading up on the bullpen does seem to be crucial with some of the health issues back there right now, and some of the struggles that we had last season, where it felt like some of these games, it would be 9-4 or something like that. And then you get into the bullpen and it felt like anything could happen at times. So I think really solidifying that back end could be pretty critical here for them. So,
yeah. And the Verlander thing, he's 41, 5.48 ERA last year, 1.38. And he was hurt. And I mean, old guys get hurt. That's old hurt guys just keep getting hurt. That's kind of the thing with them. They did say, I mean, the Astros came out and I think they were because Kyle Tucker is going to be a free agent after this year. And I think they Framber Valdez as well. So both those guys, a rental for 1 year. We saw Mike Elias has done this, go out and get a guy who has a year left on his contract. We did this a year ago. So he knows obviously the team in Houston. I'm sure he was there. He probably had something to do with Framber when he got there. So maybe that's a move that they can explore and kind of kick the tires on and see that, he would be a nice fit in this ballpark with this team. But, the trademark Garrett Crochet doesn't sound like they're in on. But yeah, I mean, rotation wise, they have some guys, they have the pieces. But I definitely think they need to add, a guy and any Eovaldi. I would love any Eovaldi and then one more plus 2 bullpen arms. And then I would kind of say, okay, I'm content with calling it a day with where we're at. It just kind of depends on those guys.
Crochet not being in the mix is interesting to me, considering it felt like they were pretty deep on him at the trade deadline. Obviously, those stipulations from him or his agent came out, and it seemed like that kind of tanked any chance of him even leaving Chicago. But I don't know. That would be a name that I would be intrigued by if they do want to, like I said, go to try and get that horse in the starting rotation. But yeah, I guess we'll see. And then Sasaki, I've got a weird feeling there that they might be. I don't know necessarily that it's going to happen, but I feel like they might actually try for that one, which would be interesting, really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, if they go for it, because it sounds like his posting window or whatever opened, I think it was yesterday. So now he has 45 days to sign, but I think it's January 15th where the international money resets. And I think right now the Orioles have the second most in the international bonus pool money, but it resets, I believe, on the 15th, I think, of January. I could be completely wrong on that date, but I think then the Orioles would drop down to like 7th or 8th most or something like that. Like there were teams are going to have more than them available once that year resets. So again, you can Elias, he's traded for it before, international signing pool bonus money or whatever.
Right, and it's like, I guess it's probably just like my pipe dream of like, why do you get Elias? Why do you build up all this international scouting? Why does Rubenstein buy the team if not to at least try to be in on these guys? But it's nothing like concrete. It's just kind of like that stuff floating around in my head, I think.
Yeah, and again, I mean, I blogged it a month ago. There was that report that like he's not. Somebody had said that he was not tied down to like it has to be a big market. It has to be an LA or a Chicago or a Boston or a New York. So I kind of just did the like playful blog, like, oh, I know a little small market team, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, that could use a pitcher or two. Like come make a splash here. Eat all the crab cakes you want. So I have no clue. I would like that. I just kind of assume Dodgers or Padres or something, someone like that. But
Giants, yeah, it feels like those California teams kind of have an edge up when it comes to signing the Japanese internationals.
Yeah, even Seattle's done it, but yeah, I'm fully ready for I've seen people being like, oh, Elias, what is Elias do? What is Rubenstein doing? He's just like Angelos, and it's like, dude, we are day one into the winter meetings. Like,
not even a year in, not even close.
This is his first offseason owning the team. Like, you gotta just pump the brakes. Like, we can't be jumping down his throat already. It's just like you gotta give it time. And again, it takes two to tango. Like, you just saw it with Juan Soto in the Mets. Or in the Yankees. You can offer somebody a boatload of money and they can say no. Like, that's how it works. So, I believe to a degree that like what they say, like we're in on, a couple of these guys and they are talking. So they said the Orioles were interested in Snell. I think that is something that happened. I follow Blake Snell on Twitch and like I watch him play video games and Call of Duty and stuff. Like I'll be watching the Yak at night or something. And one night I typed in his chat, I was like, you like crab cakes? And he was like, absolutely not. And I was like, well, that'll do. I was gonna like clip it and get it out there, but I never got a chance to. But I knew he wasn't coming to Baltimore a month ago. So
yeah, of course, yeah. No, that was
he literally was like, hell no. So I was like, all right, peace out, dude. But I do think they're involved with these guys and talking. It just the money has to be right and all that, and the qualifying offer guys. Like I don't really want a guy like Sean Manaea. I don't know. He doesn't. He cost the pick. Not that matters to me at all because you're going to get two more back. But he doesn't. I don't know. I feel uneasy about him. He just kind of seems like a flash in the pan.
Yeah, he's kind of like a 1 year sort of.
Exactly. Like he kind of came out of nowhere. I've known who he is. I think he threw a no-hitter for the Padres, but he's just, I don't know. He out of all the guys, I would go Fried over him. Fried's obviously going to cost a lot more, I believe, but I think Fried's perfect for them. But it sounds like the Yankees or Boston is again going to throw whatever money that they had allocated for Soto at him. So so I mean, if they got Fried, that would be an incredible, ace type move. And I think your rotation is set there, but again, long off season left. A lot of moves, things could happen tomorrow, tonight, in 3 seconds. We don't know. So just kind of keep, refreshing and staying involved and active. And again, I turn your notifications on. That's all I can say.
Hot stove season. All right. Anything else before we get on out of here?
I'm trying to think. Is there anything that we've missed? I don't know. I'm excited again. The winter meetings have gotten me going. Usually I've had NFL Network on, every day since October 3rd or whatever it was, but I've had baseball on the last couple of days with the winter meetings starting up, and I'm excited and I'm already talking to buddies about the O's Caravan. Hopefully we get some good events there and hoping that they can make some more moves and get people excited. I mean, somebody tweeted me last night and they were like, are the Orioles the favorite in the division right now? And it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I haven't checked any of the betting websites, but
they'll be right up there. I mean, they were a couple, they were a handful of games away from winning it this past season, and they were injured to all hell down that stretch and just not playing up to their potential. So
they had asked Hyde about that. They said, you guys kind of, in the nicest way possible, you guys kind of fell off a cliff in the second half. What the hell happened? and they asked if it was the young guys kind of hitting a wall. And he says he did the, like, I hate to use injuries as an excuse, but I think the injuries did play a big role. Obviously Bautista not being there the whole year was big, but he goes, we didn't have Bradish. And he named 3 players, and he goes, you would guess 2 of them, but he goes, we didn't have Westberg for a big chunk. We didn't have Bradish. And he goes, and we didn't have Jorge Mateo. And it's like, oh, okay. So I think the Jorge, him not being there was a much bigger hole than I think we had imagined when he went out. That was a big, big loss. And again, hopefully he can come back, and he was playing really well when he got hurt. So that was just that month where if anything could go wrong, it went wrong. And God damn, that series in Miami was brutal. So, hopefully we get everybody back, and let's, I don't know, stay healthy for the next year and try and piece something together. So I'm excited though.
It'll be interesting. I think expectations will be, maybe a little more muted than they were going into this past season, and that could work in their favor. I mean, going into this past year, I was expecting, 97
wins easy. I'm like, of course they're going to win 100. What do you mean?
Yeah, it was like, go win 100 games again, World Series contention, that kind of thing. And you know what? They made the playoffs and everything, but obviously it didn't go the way that any of us wanted it to go. Just getting swept again. It was brutal. Just totally did not live up to expectations. So I think it's just kind of more a sense of like, yeah, they can absolutely win the division, but shit, let's get through the first 3 months. Let's get to the All-Star break. Let's get through this, that, and the other before we start talking about it, because I think the Yankees will still be strong again this season. And we'll see what happens with the Red Sox. It seems like they're set to spend big. You mentioned they missed out on Soto. Well, you got a lot of money earmarked to go and get some other big names, and the Red Sox were, not a playoff team, but they were frisky last season. So we'll see what happens with the AL East. But I was going to say it's a while off, but that depresses me. I'm so like, I don't know if it was the time change or, being without heat for a little while. I am so ready for the weather to start getting warmer and for baseball to be here. And, frankly, put some of the Ravens discourse behind me. We're not even we still got 4 weeks to go in that regular season. That's kind of wearing on me. So it's like, just get me there already.
Yeah. I said, like, this is the year that I'm going to make it down to spring training. And like, I need sun and sand and spring training baseball and all that. So yes, it's coming. I mean, again, it's coming up very quick. Like it's December 9th now. It's going to be Christmas before you know it. And then you're going to have pitchers and catchers like a month and a half after that. And then it's just,
you got some Francesa vibes going there. Here we go. Week 11, October. It just comes around quickly. Hey, here we go. Week 12. It's crazy how fast it goes by.
Pretty much. It is. It's nuts. Time flies. But yeah, I'm ready. I'm anxious for some heat. Literally the other night, I was like sitting there and I texted a buddy and I was like, I can't wait to be in Camden Yards with a beer. Like I cannot wait.
A comically oversized $40 beer. Like, oh God,
it's going to be so good. It's going to be the best. I can't wait. I need it very, very soon. So.
Okay. Well, only about 4 months until that happens. 5 months. So yeah, very, very exciting stuff.
Yeah.
All right. Will that do it?
Yeah, I think so. And we're going to try and do some stuff again. If nothing's happening, I don't know how often we'll jump on because again, there's not much you can say or all that. But again, if stuff's happening and signings or trade stuff like that, we'll definitely hop on and get interactive and talk about it. But we'll probably try and sprinkle a couple more in leading up to baseball, and kind of depends on football and how that ends and what goes on there. But we'll still be here every now and then. But again, if something happens, we'll pop on and we'll discuss it. And we wait for that to happen until then. So.
That we do. Well, thank you for joining me here, my friend, to have a nice little catch-up chat about the Orioles, about all that's happened so far in free agency, and about what we expect to happen and hope to happen. Thank you all who joined us here and everyone who listened after the fact. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe to the YouTube page, comment, like the videos, do whatever you can to get that algorithm pumping for us, spread us by word of mouth, do what you can do on that front. Follow us on social media at Exit 52 Podcast on X and on Instagram. You can find me at Jake Louque. That's LOUQUE. You can find Eric at EDITTI22, Spenny at Ravens 4 Dummies. That's the number 4. Ryan at Barstool Banks, Taylor at Taylor Smythe 10. Shout out to Give Me Famous Seafood. Get yourself tickets to the Tailgate if you're going to the Giants game this weekend. Get out there, party with the boys. It's going to be a fun time up there at the Tailgate. So check that out at the Tailgate website, which you can find via Google. And in the meantime, We will talk to you guys later.